everybody, it's Rob. It's time for another edition of Member Talks. We are excited about today's guest coming to you. I want to kind of preface who our guest is today. At our district meetings that we just had back in mid-June, we ran a survey to the people that were in attendance, and the overwhelming request on that survey was, well, I should say the question on that survey was, what kind of information would you like to hear more of? And the overwhelming response on that survey was embalming techniques. And so we are funeral directors, we are embalmers. We're the only ones out there that do this process. And so we should be continuing to talk about embalming techniques. And as such, we've invited a special guest. He is a licensed embalmer. He's a licensed funeral director. He's a postmortem reconstruction specialist, an author. He's a speaker. His name is Shane Ritchie, certified funeral service practitioner. Hello, Shane.
Hello, nice to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm doing really well.
Now, first and foremost, we always talk about who we're talking with and where we're talking from. Now, we're here in Spokane, of course. Where are you located? Where are you at?
I am in, and my business is in Chesapeake, Ohio. It's a little town right across the river. We're kind of a bedroom community of Huntington, West Virginia. If anybody knows where that is, it's the claim to fame for Huntington is Marshall University. If anybody's familiar with the movie We Are Marshall, the Matthew McConaughey movie, that was based on the story of the 1970 plane crash that killed the football team and a lot of the prominent Huntingtonians. So we're right across the river from Huntington, West Virginia.
Well, I can honestly say I know exactly where you are, because when I was a teenager, I actually flew in from Detroit, Michigan to Huntington, West Virginia.
Oh, boy.
I was the only person besides the pilot and co-pilot on the little plane flying into Huntington, West Virginia. It was kind of a little eerie being the only one on there. But it was kind of fun because they said sit wherever you want. So
yeah.
So welcome to Member Talks. It's exciting to get you on here because you have quite a bit of knowledge and quite a bit of experience in embalming, and we're out here in Washington. For those of you that don't know, Washington is about a 80% cremation state, meaning 80% of the people that pass away in Washington currently are being cremated. We're happy to report that about 50% of that number have chosen to have some form of memorialization, and that whether that be a viewing prior to cremation, whether that be a memorial gathering either before or after the cremation, there's about 50% are choosing to do something other than cremation. And I wanted to address that and say that because on your website, the tagline on your website is dedicated to the value of open casket viewing. So we're excited. We want to hear about embalming techniques. We want to hear about what you do. I know that you are pretty widely known on the national level. You've been in multiple trade journals. You've got endorsements from NFDA and the Funeral Business Advisor magazine, Illinois Funeral Directors, Dodge, Pierce Chemical, Wilbert, all sorts of different people. We want to be the ones to as well say welcome, and hopefully we can strike an agreement to help promote you as well.
Well, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How does one become a professional? Well, how does one become an embalmer? We kind of have that figured out, but tell me your story with that. How did you get into this, and how did you become an embalmer?
Well, I had been interested in the funeral business since I was a child, really. But growing up, life happens and we do different things. And I came to a point in my life that I found myself divorced with two young daughters that were in my custody. And I was in a job that I wasn't very happy with. And this has been many years ago, but an opening came at a funeral home in our area, in Huntington, as a matter of fact. And a friend of mine happened to be an attendant there, and he asked, would you be interested in taking an attendance job? I thought, well, this might be the perfect opportunity to learn something about the profession, and so I took the job and loved it, and it was just straight ahead from there. And I eventually, after a couple of years, I decided I wanted to go to mortuary school, which I went to Pittsburgh and went through that, and started to work as a embalmer and funeral director. And I found I was drawn to the embalming side a lot, and that's been my main focus really ever since. I still am a licensed funeral director, but embalming is my passion,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of where my story started.
I think a lot of people, when they hear this that aren't in this profession, would say, "Did you just say embalming is my passion?" But for those of us that are in this profession, we do understand that importance and realize that that's our way to, or at least one of our many ways, to help a family through this time of loss, help this family through this time of grieving, to be able to put their loved one on display in a viewing or visitation, whatever you wish to call it. And so thank you for doing what you're doing there in your area to continue that tradition and to continue that process. You have become you've actually kind of taken it to the next level, done some extensive training. I saw in your bio here that it talks about you went to the Verney Fountain Academy as part of some of your training. But you've kind of become a restorative art specialist through your training and your background. How does one become a restorative art specialist? What kind of training are you doing for that?
Well, in restorative art, there are actually a couple things that you look at. Part of it was my hobby since I was a child, was special effects makeup. I've been involved in that on a semi-professional basis since I was a young teenager, and that gave me, I think, a big head start on a lot of things. Then like you said, I attended the Fountain National Academy. I went through all the classes there. That was one of just 52 people that went through all in the entire world through the whole time that the school's been open, who have actually gone through the entire process, all the classes, the entire program. And Bernie and I have become good friends, and it just seemed a natural fit with my cosmetic special effects background, and the restoration work just worked hand in hand. And I've always been very interested in anatomy, and that's part of the art of cosmetics also. So everything just kind of fit together there. And so I have just continued to study, practice, train, and I've begun to train other embalmers all over the country. I've spoken in almost every state, not Washington yet, but I've been a speaker in most every state of the nation so far, written numerous articles, and I just continue to do this and grow. I do it for funeral homes really all over the country. I've been called to come in and repair cases of anything from traffic accidents to gunshot wounds, head crush, decomposing bodies, just you name it. And I do that. That's my specialty of what I go in to do, because I'm such a believer in the value of having that casket open. I think that is the real reason that we are licensed. I'll give you a little quiz here that I give everyone, and this is something that I like everyone to do, and those that are listening. When you go back to your staff, take a pencil and paper and have them write down everything that a funeral director and an embalmer does. Just start making a list. Embalming, restorative art, arranging funerals, picking up the body. You can come out with a list, a very long list. Now go back And I know there's some variations from state to state, but go back and start to mark off everything that the family couldn't do for themselves or couldn't hire someone, a layman, a planner, or someone to do for them. And what's generally left in most every state, embalming and restorative procedures. That's the real reason that we have a license. That's the reason we are a profession. And I'm just such an advocate for the value of viewing. And I'll get into a personal story here after we talk a little bit more and tell you what really set this off for me.
Sure. Well, it's, you've said some key words that I really like. One is the word profession. I don't see us as an industry, as a market. We are professionals. This is work that we do for other people that we've been trained to do, and we do the best that we can at it. And some of us are very, very good. Some of us could use some training for sure, but it's nice to know that we've got people that are out there that we can call on, the Shane Ritchies of the world, that we can call on and say, what do I do? I'm lost. How do I take what I'm looking at here and make this presentable in a timely and efficient way? And so it's nice to know that we've got people that are out there. And the other one is the word art in the restorative art. It is a art program. It's an artistry that we do. It is technical and there's a lot to it that way, but you have to have an artist's eye to be able to do what you're doing. And I know just my own experience, I remember back to mortuary school when we were taking restorative art as a class, and the attempt that I made to try to recreate the wax head of Clint Eastwood, it didn't look anything like him, but it worked well enough, I guess. So, but it is just an amazing thing when you know what you started with, and you see the family that comes in, and even if they spend just a minute or two with their loved one, that's a minute or two that it may have taken you, 15 to 20 to more, even more hours to do that process.
Right.
But that minute or two is so precious to that family. So I'd love to learn more about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and see. I know that you're an author. You have some books out there, is it, or is it just in blogs, or how does that work?
I'm actually working on a book right now. It's grown as I've been working on it for about a year now, and it's continued to grow. So I'm going to have an editor go through and help me get things. But I am working on a book right now. Hopefully by the end of the year, I will have a book out. I really feel that most of the reconstructive art programs are way behind the times, even in the schools. The cosmetics that are available are mostly from old theatrical cosmetics, is what they were based on. We have so much better quality of materials that we can use today, but we've got to get the schools on board. I know a lot of them have begun to pick up things like airbrush and that, but which is a step in the right direction, but that's just one step. An airbrush is just a tool, and I can't count the funeral homes I've gone to that said, oh, well, we bought that airbrush. The salesman told us that was going to change our lives, and it's set on the shelf because we can't figure out what to do with it. So I'm trying to teach all these techniques because there's a lot more that can be done than just airbrush. And if we could get some schools on board with really teaching restorative art in a practical manner, what you're going to actually face in the real world. We're not going to normally be building wax heads. And I understand the idea behind it, but I really think we're missing the practical aspects of restorative art. And we get out of school and these people say, I've never really done anything like this before. In restorative art, we made a head, and that was pretty much the size of it. We learned about the the different positions that are the ideal, two eyes wide and all that kind of thing, which hardly applies to anyone. The canon of beauty is the absolute considered the perfection, but most people aren't perfect. We need a more realistic restorative art programs in schools to prepare people. And so I've been trying to work on some of that. And of course I'm a full-time embalmer myself, so I'm hopping around with a lot of different things, but again, it's my passion, it's what I do, and I am not someone my main goal is not to promote Shane Ritchie or promote I want everyone to know about NecroMetics because I think it is the best product available, the best products available out there, and it's light years ahead of the stuff that most of the people are using now. Mm-hmm. But the main thing is the human aspect of this. It's so important, and I've said it over and over again, and again I'm going to tell you my personal story here in a minute when we get ready, but you have to accept with your head, your eyes, the reality of a death, I believe, before you can accept it with your heart. Mm-hmm. And I believe that is so important for people to be able to see their loved one. And I know it's probably the most difficult time in their life, but it makes such a huge difference in the long run. So that's really my passion and my purpose, I feel.
So let me ask you this question, and I guess it comes from how would you respond to this? From what I talk with people and hear from people, the main reason that restorative art is not performed, which would allow for that open casket viewing. The main reason that I'm hearing is a lot of times people are, from what I gather, are too scared, if you will, to attempt it, with the idea that, oh my goodness, what if I do more damage that's unrepairable? How do you respond to that with people trying to do restorative art or not willing to even begin because of the reconstruction that could be involved with that person?
Right. Well, there is training available. Of course, Bernie has slowed down some on his at his Fountain National Academy, but he's still active, and I have the greatest respect for Bernie. He's kind of the grandfather of this whole movement that we have. But there are other people like myself who are out there trying to teach. Mm-hmm. If people want to learn, there is training available. I'm willing and ready to go anywhere and put on these programs and try to teach these things. There's some others in the funeral profession. Dominic Astorino is one that I know. Wally Hooker is another that's good. Monica Torres is one and there are people available to teach these things. So that's we don't want to use that as an excuse. I understand the fear, and you do have to learn to step outside of your comfort zone sometimes. But there is training out there. There are people that are willing to do this and are willing to train people in these cases.
Yeah, I agree with you. There are quite a number, and Facebook is and Twitter, I know social media in general is becoming a great catalog of mm-hmm. teaching and getting advice from people. So if you haven't gone on there yet or been a part of those groups, mm-hmm. Look into them. I would caution people though, and you might have seen some of this as well, is sometimes those groups can go the opposite direction, and you get a lot of people that are telling you you're wrong or whatever. But the idea is not really to put people down, but rather to educate. And I think you're doing a great job with that.
Well, thank you. And we just started a Facebook group called 21st Century Embalming and Restoration. uh, for that very reason. And I'm not trying to say that I am the be all end all expert, but we do have a number of the experts that I talked about that have joined. I have participated in some of the groups, and one of the problems that I ran into is everybody's an expert on these groups half the time, if you know what I'm saying. So the premise of our group was our tagline is consider the why. If you can't explain why you're doing something in a truly scientific manner, then you need to step back and take a look at it, because we have an awful lot of people out there. Well, we do it this way because that's the way Grandpa did it, or that's the way Dad did it, or so and so told me to do it that way. But you ask them, really, now why would that be? And there's no good answer. So our group, we just got started, and we've got some very good people on there now to help. But we want to help people to be able to understand like I said, the why of what we do. We always want to consider the why and think about what we're doing before we do it. And I think that's very important.
Good. Well, let's switch gears a little bit here. I want to talk a little bit about that sign behind you, NecroMetics.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about NecroMetics. What is that? What is that about?
NecroMetics was birthed from an idea. I had used probably every cosmetic there was at the various funeral homes that I've worked with. And of course, as I say, going back to my background in special effects cosmetics, myself and my daughter Taja, who work together. Taja she's not a funeral director, but she's an artist, and we got together, and I talked to her, and I said, there have got to be better ways to do these things than these people are trying to do them. These old wax repairs that we're doing, you can do a nice repair, but then all of a sudden the family comes in and touches or kisses, and all your work goes down the drain.
Right.
So we sat down and put our heads together and said, why don't we come up with our own line that's based on special effects cosmetics, but make it something that is simple for an embalmer to learn to use, doesn't require tremendous shift in the knowledge that they already have, but just builds on it and improves it. So that was where NecroMetics came from. And we have expanded, and we are now selling pretty much all over the world. We're getting ready to have a distributor in Ireland that will be taking care of things for us in Europe.
Yeah.
And it's just really grown. We're trying to get the word out in a way, and we're trying to keep our stuff affordable and very user friendly. So that's really where it came from. It's based on special effects cosmetics, but it's geared for the embalmer. So that's and it's light years ahead of the old theatrical makeup that is still being used by so many. And they're trying to do the best they can do, but this stuff really can make a big difference. So we're real proud of it. I'm proud of my daughter. She's been the artistic designer behind helping me with a lot of this, and it's really done well, really doing well.
Well, yeah, I know you talk about the theatrical makeup. That's where we hear the term caked on, and we see that so often. I think that's one of the big reasons why we're seeing less, at least in Washington, seeing less and less people choosing for viewing or choosing to see their loved one because of that caked on reality. It just looks so theatrical.
Right.
It's kind of. So how does NecroMetics work? Is it a brush on? Is it a spray on?
Well, actually, we have. It's a number of products. It's not just one single product. It's we have I've got a few things. We have a wax replacer compound that we have developed and we have this in a dark flesh, a light flesh. This is the light flesh. I don't know how well you can see that there, but When this goes on to, normally you would fill a wound with wax, smooth it out with something like dry wash or lacquer thinner, acetone, whatever you use as your solvent. This is done with just water on your finger. Once this stuff dries, it's an acrylic polymer, and it dries almost like a rubber. Now, it's not latex. Latex is some old school stuff too that really isn't used much anymore for purposes that even in the theatrical world, and or mainly most of my stuff is based on things that you would see in movies, TV, that kind of thing. But just for instance, like I say, our wax replacement, once it's on and it's set, the family can kiss, touch. You can apply, you can airbrush over it if you want to, whatever you want to do with that. We have a line of airbrush products that we teach and sell, but that product will not be moved, and so it's a wax replacement. I haven't used wax in any of my reconstructions for a number of years, and we decided that it was almost like one of my little secrets, but when we decided to do this, we said we're going to open this up and start to bring this to everybody, because I really think our profession kind of depends on some of these things. We have another product that we call NecroMetics. This is a sealing foundation product, a base product that will completely cover any discoloration. It will stop the bleed through of things like razor burn. And it's based on, it's kind of a interesting story. The originator of the formula that it was called Pax was Dick Smith, who was the makeup artist that did The Exorcist, Little Big Man, all this back in the 70s. So this is not something it's been in the special effects community, but not everywhere. But so what we did is we looked at the Pax and we said, how can we make this so it will adhere to cold skin and make it so that it's user friendly. So we have it now in about 12 different colors. And the idea is to get the color as close as you possibly can to the skin tone you want. And then we go from there and we have some specialty techniques using alcohol activated palettes that we use some different techniques to actually add in the pixelation, because skin is not really one color. That's where we get the problem of the painting it on, and it almost looks mannequin-like. Because we're just painting a solid color and saying, you know, there you go, paint the lips with some lipstick and whatnot. But you can't get realistic that way, and that's what we're trying to teach. We even have a prosthetic skin that we've developed that we can use, and I've used this numerous times in trauma cases where parts of the skin are completely gone, and used in a number of cancer cases where you have to excise tumors from the face. And like I said, all these things are taught in the classes that I do. We just developed a line of prosthetic ears, and we wanted to make these. Normally these things were made out of foam latex rubber, but that's not, or more recently they use silicone, but those kind of products weren't really accessible for embalmers. It required special techniques, special skills. So we've developed a product out of our own concoction, so to speak, that is easy for an embalmer to use. And if they're willing to learn and spend a little time learning something new. Now, one problem we do have, and I know you've seen this, there are a lot of apathetic embalmers out there. It's just, you know, push the fluid in, get it done, get out of here. We can't help those types of people. They really need to find other work. It's what I always say at my speaking engagements. And you can always tell the ones they're in the back asleep when you're talking, you know. The NecroMetics is a whole series, and if you go to the NecroMetics website, which is just necrometics.com, you can take a look. Every product on there are the same products that I use. I handpicked every single product, or the things that I use, and along with my daughter helping me to develop these things, are the things that I use when I do my restoration. So I don't put anything on there that I haven't used many, many, many times, and it's proven itself to be effective. So that's what it all comes down to.
Well, and on that website, you know, it's something to point out too, and this, of course, is another contributing factor with restorative art. What's it
Hmm.
cost? How much is it going to cost me? Not only in
Hmm.
time, but money. And just on your website, looking through it now, everything is reasonably priced. I mean,
We've tried to. Yeah.
you've got products here that are very equivalent to what you would normally be buying anyway. So
Yeah. Right.
why not try it? Why not try it out?
Right,
Just see what
right. And
happens.
we have, we have small sizes of like trial sizes almost, and the little 1 ounce sizes that allow people to give it a whirl. I always tell everybody just it's a new skill. It's just like the airbrush. You've got to learn these new skills and new techniques and practice a little bit. Once you get it down, you'd never want to go back again. So that's and I noticed, I don't know if you noticed, but I also have my blog, and I try to do a weekly post on the website. There's a blog on there, which I try to give techniques and explain things in more detail. We've got some videos. We are just getting our YouTube channel going, but it's got a couple videos that show the products being used, and
Right.
we're just trying to get the word out there because again, it's just such an important thing, and I really feel like the future of our profession depends on that open casket. It really does.
Well, a couple things that I saw on your site I wanted to touch on too. Um, your blog, definitely. I love the blog. I've been reading through those the last few days, the different blogs that you've got on there. And it's nice to see a embalmer that is not solely dedicated to one type of embalming or one product in embalming. Your blog here, just reading through some of these, even the very first one entitled My Ever Evolving
Tenants, yeah.
Embalming Tenets. You know, you've got different products in there that you're using, and it's nice to see that
Hmm.
you kind of tested all of them out
Right.
and what works best. So
Hmm.
I think all too often we hear from you know, the embalming company that shows up and it's our product or no product, but you're
Right,
kind of
right,
going through everything there, and
right.
that's great. The other thing that I really wanted to point out too is on your website that I saw that I really liked is you can't really say I'm fearful of trying something new because you can get your product, but what I'm seeing here, you can get your
Mhm.
product. If it doesn't work for you, you've got a guarantee on it.
Oh
You've
yeah,
backed
it's
it to a point
mhm.
that you've guaranteed this will work for you.
Yeah, I just ask, take the time, learn to use it properly. If you don't like it, send it back. We'll refund your money. So I don't think you can ask, get any better than that. I'm a firm believer in it, and I believe that once they try it, take the time. That's the big thing. Take the time to learn it. But if you're not happy, I'll refund your money. I'm not going to take your money for something that you're not happy with.
Sure. And I love the fact that, you know, I mean, as an embalmer myself, I know that we do get very complacent and we kind of just do the same thing over and
Mm.
over and over again. But if we're not learning, we're moving in a backwards direction, and that
Right.
backwards direction is what's really hurting our profession,
Hmm.
with people choosing not to have viewing. So the continued learning that you're providing, that you can get through other people, stay on that and learn as much as you can about this, because embalming is not done. I mean, it's not completed. There's always new techniques,
Oh,
always
absolutely.
new
One of my
products.
yeah, one of my sayings is art is never finished. It's just abandoned. So, that's true for, and I consider embalming an art as it's a science and an art combined, and you never stop learning. There's always something new to learn, a new case, a new twist, and that's one of the things I think it makes it so interesting to me is because it's always the same. And just to touch on something that you mentioned a little bit earlier, I won't take any kind of donations of product or any payment from any chemical company. I have had times that we've been approached by some. Now I speak at things that are in held by certain chemical companies. But
Sure.
even at those, I've told them I'm going to tell it like I see it, and I've had no problem with it, but I won't accept payment or endorsements from chemical companies in return for using or pushing their products. I just won't do that. I don't think that's an ethical way to be.
Yeah. Well, Shane Ritchie, tell me, you can go on to Netro. I keep messing that up. I apologize. NecroMetics.com. That's one way to find you.
Mm-hmm.
I've been on your Facebook page as well. It's
Mm-hmm.
facebook.com/NecroMetics. You've got another website out there. What is that?
Mine that's my really my speaking website is shaneritchie.com, and that has some information about my speaking and what I talk about, and I have some downloadable forms, my embalming report that I use, some release forms, just samples for people to look at to give them a place to start if they want to learn more about this restorative work. And
that was actually something I wanted to talk with you about too, because I had seen that before we began talking, and I couldn't find it. I've been sitting here while we're talking now searching for it. But one of the downloadable forms you got on your website is suggested solution mixtures. What a great way to teach. And I mean, me for one, I learned embalming mixtures back in mortuary school back years ago.
Right.
I think a lot of us have. We kind of just get, again, complacent and grab 2 or 3 bottles of this, a bottle of that, throw it all together and call it good. And then scratch our heads 2 days later and go, well, why aren't we seeing what we thought we would see?
Right.
But this is great to be able to look through this and just get some of these ideas. Get some of these ideas and test them out, see how they work. Obviously, if you're writing about them, they must be working fine.
Yeah, that's and like I say, everything like there. If I find something that works better, I'll make changes to it. But I am constantly testing. One of the things that I've done for years, as I've been in this business, I had my own mortuary service for a number of years before I hurt my back and had to kind of slow down on that. So I went to work at the largest funeral home in our area here as their lead embalmer and prep room manager. But for years, I've made careful notes. And if you look at my embalming report, you can see it. But I've made careful notes on nearly every case I've done. And part of it is just I'm interested in this, and I want I want this profession to progress because I feel it's so important. And with those notes, I have been able to go through over the years. I've probably embalmed, in the last 15 years, probably well over 6,000 bodies, I would say. And I have notes on nearly everybody that I've ever embalmed, how they responded. I've had cases that I've kept for months in the prep room. So I just kind of compiled a big library, and that's part of the reason I'm trying to hone this book down that I'm working on. But it's again, it's a passion, and I hope that I can be of help to some of my fellow colleagues out there, and that's really what I want to be my legacy is. I just want to be someone that's out there trying to bring this profession the respect that it deserves. And the professional embalmers, I have such respect for the good guys. I really do. They're some tremendous people out there.
Well, we're getting a little long here, so we're going to go ahead and shut it down. But to be honest with you, I could sit and talk with you all day long. I love talking about embalming and funeral service, and I think what you're doing is wonderful. So we're going to continue to promote you out west here, and hopefully we'll get you to come out and talk to us live one of these days and see where that goes. But in the meantime, to get in touch with you, ShaneRitchie.com. NecroMetics.com, Facebook.com/NecroMetics. There's all sorts of different ways to reach out. So, Shane, thank you so much for doing this with us. We really appreciate you coming on board. And if I ever get back to the old family farm up in Gallipolis, I'll swing by and say hi to you.
Yeah, you're not far away at all. About an hour away from me.
Yeah, just up the river.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Well, thank you again, Shane. It's been a real pleasure. And like I say, we're going to do what we can to try to get you out here one of these days soon to maybe do a live in-person techniques, skills, training, anything like that. So
Sure. Would love to do that. Thank you so much for having me.
you bet. And in the meantime, as always, if you are interested in participating in member talks, call me. Certainly subscribe on or follow on YouTube, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, any other ways. Also check out NecroMetics on Facebook. They got a lot of great ideas and products there as well as on their website. So till next time, see you everybody later. Bye-bye.